Hey, what's up guys, and welcome back to Anime King 2, and today I'm going to be giving you a new series. What if Naruto was neglected and lost everything? Yes guys, part 1 of What if Naruto was neglected and lost everything. If you want to see part 2 of this, go ahead and comment down below and tell me if you want to see part 2, and I'll be posting it as soon as possible for you guys to enjoy. Remember to go ahead and check out the link in the description to enjoy for yourself. And also guys, I'm gonna be posting a new series over Anime King 3. Yes, a brand new series, you heard me right. So stay in tune for that guys, which I do hope that you guys will enjoy. And if you do, just remember to comment down below and tell me that you enjoy and you want to see part 2, because it's your comments guys that made me post the next part. It's your comments that made me keep on going. All those helpful, cheerful comments. So stay in tune because Anime King 3 new series is next as well. But no longer suspense, let's get straight into this new series and begin it. It was July 23. The sun was high, the clouds were white and pristine, as the environment, the entire air was just perfect, as the wind blew, illuminating through the village. The great monument where four faces stood, looking over the entire village. Most people believe that their previous Hokages are still watching over them as their eyes roamed over the village. The first, the second, the third, that an overactive blonde called Jiji, and the current Hokage, the fourth. On this day, a boy with blonde, spiky hair stood next. A black hair boy. The blonde hair boy gave the black hair boy his most adorable pout with puppy dog eyes. The black hair boy looked at him with a tick mark before he broke the popsicle in half. It had two wooden sticks, those popsicles that you were to share with a friend, as he handed one of them to the blonde hair boy, who took it with delight. As he nodded in appreciation, the blonde was none other than Naruto. Next year, we're going to be 6, and at the academy, Naruto pointed out, and maybe you'll find yourself a fan club, so you will stop being this downbeat. He pointed. The black hair boy beside him, known as Itachi Uchiha, father told me that uncle, Mokoto, committed suicide last night. He was drowning in despair. A look of sorrow came on Itachi's face. For a 5-year-old boy, this wasn't, normal, as Itachi was born on June. That made him the elder of the two, which Naruto always used to tease him somehow. Naruto was dressed in a bright orange clothes with a pair of goggles around his neck. As if he was a ninja, he would have been the first casualty in the recently ended 3rd grade shinobi war. After all, who would dress in something that bright and flashy? As his clear blue eyes and his blonde hair, he looked just like his father, as he had 3 whisker marks on each cheek. As he was the son of the 4th Hokage, meant he had his own fan club from he was 1 year old. He was pretty sure his mother was to blame. The claim that Kushina Uzumaki was a strange person would be going mildly, as Naruto had some rather strange pajamas, some of them animalistic, but it was quite funny to him. And not to mention there was photographs that were taken seconds away from each other, like she just stood there with the camera taking pictures after picture. She even took a picture for his first word. How would you take a picture for his first word? That was weird. But he didn't point that out because she would just pinch his cheeks and said how cute he was when he was pouting. The other boy though, Itachi Uchiha, had a calm, collective look. He was serious. He doesn't really act like a child. Having the Uchihas deployed for war, Itachi had seen clanmates, cousins, died, so it had a mental effect on him. Some of them even came back alive. But coming back from a war wasn't anything normal. Your mind always got affected, making them talk about horrific things that twisted the young boy's mind to make him start to see the truth of this world, this war-torn world. It had been a pretty war after all. Destruction, Village raise, children, women, kill without a second thought, and they were innocent. Itachi hadn't really seen it, but as the mindset of the authors that retell their story, it changed him a lot. Some of them turn back normal by finding some way to release that stress, mostly by drinking or some other way, but some of them couldn't take it and they end up committing suicide. Sometimes they brought their sons and daughter with them. Sometimes they just left the village and they were found in the forest. Their own kunais embedded in their chests, their throat slits. And they were the cause of this, as they just wanted to erase the memories and the things they have seen. That was a casualty of war. And that was the reason why Itachi really hated war. He didn't want to witness or see something like that. He had yet to awaken the Sharingan, the dojutsu of the Uchiha clan. Some members never did, but given the family that he was from, him being the son of the clan head, there was a high chance that he would. He was wearing green shorts with a brown shirt, dark, as his face, just as Naruto said, was rather serious. Too serious for a 5-year-old. How do you join on this spear, said Naruto, as he was confused. Wasn't this spear an emotion? How do you join on those things? It's a saying, said Itachi. The both of their mothers were really good friends. And both Naruto and Itachi had grown up, knowing each other, as they were currently waiting outside the clinic. Considering that the both of their mother had ended up getting pregnant nearly the same time. One on the process of giving birth. That was Mikoto, and Kushina was 7 months pregnant at the moment. But both boys knew one thing. It really sucked being around them right now. Firstly, it was gonna be loud yells. Then they would talk to their stomach. A lot of baby talk. Baby talk for hours. And they were told that being a big brother was going to be a big responsibility. Well, Itachi did have it within him. To be a good big brother, after all, he made friends with this knucklehead blonde, who always threw himself in some dangerous situation. As you remember the first time he met Naruto, as Naruto had walked into the Uchiha armory and set off an explosive tag, only because of Itachi's reflex, was his mother potted plant was destroyed instead of the entire armory. But the stranger thing was, Naruto was wearing all orange, and yet still he was able to walk past everyone and walk in the armory and nearly blow the entire place up. And not to mention he was fun, so Itachi decided to stick around with him. And given that the war was going on at that time, he decided to, take his mind off most of that, as a blonde always seemed to have, done something that is just out of the way, that always surprised him. The door of the hospital opened, and standing there was a red, hot habanero, or known as tomato. Well, if you want to die a painful death by calling her by that nickname, the one and only Kushina Namikaze. She grinned as she looked towards the two of them. We got an older brother and his little brother now, she said, as both Naruto and Itachi got off the bench that they were sitting on. As Naruto punched Itachi on the shoulder with a huge grin. That's awesome, believe it, said Naruto, before he was slapped, as he looked up towards his mother, as her eye was twitching. I got to fix this way of your speech right now, believe it, she said. Ouch, mom, that hurts, believe it, he said. Another hit as she ruffled his head. She didn't really put any strength behind her hits, as she simply ruffled her boy's head. Well, Itachi-kun, stop gaping like a fish. Your mother is resting inside, but she wanted you to see her baby brother, said Kushina. Itachi nodded as he made his way towards his mother's room. Meanwhile, mother and son stared at one another with a grin on their face. 5 minutes later, Itachi came out with an embarrassed face, as both Namikaze laughed, as Kushina told the poor boy which room his mother was in. He nodded in appreciation as he made his way back inside. Kushina then turned towards her son. As Naruto stepped back, she went closer as he stepped back. She leaned her face extremely close. You've been eating a popsicle, she said. I told you not to spoil your appetite for lunch. Me? Mom, you knew I would never, ever. As he tried to back away, chains emerged from the woman and wrapped him up tightly. As she carried him away, making her way towards Ichiraku Ramen. As Kushina smiled, she already became a usual customer of the stall. As Naruto really hoped that his mother would put him down right now, as she was carrying him like a sack of potatoes. Namikaze-san, salt ramen as usual, said Tuki. As his daughter Ayam looked forward to see the bundle, as it was Naruto that was tied up. Dad, Naruto-kun is turning blue, Ayam said. Kushina turned towards Naruto. as he had puffed out his cheeks, doing it on purpose. She brought him close and placed him on one of the stools. "If you spoil your lunch again, I'm gonna make you wear that new pajama. The tiger one," she said. Naruto paled at the thought. He would rather die than wear something that had an actual tail. As Ayam giggled, it seems that the girl had a rather devious mind. "Ayam, get back here. You need to learn how to start chopping vegetables properly for the soup." "Pork ramen for me," said Naruto. As the man nodded as both him and Ayam got to work, something then appeared behind him as a firm hand rested on his head, ruffling his hair, as his hair covered his eyes. "I knew I would find you two here." My wallet was crying tears of pain after all, said Minato with a smile. Kushina stuck out her tongue in a childish manner before she reached into one of her inner pockets and pulled out a frog wallet. "I didn't think you could cry though," Kushina said. Minato faced pale. "Now then, Kushina-heim, please don't go overboard. We both know that the Hokage's stipend isn't as high as most people think," he said. As Kushina simply smiled at that. "Hey mom, dad," said Naruto. "Am I gonna have a little sister or little brother?" Naruto asks. "Well, we won't know until a Cabbage Patch has grown enough to..." "Hey dad," said Ayam. "I thought the stork was the one that brought the kids." "Huh?" said Toke, as he turned away from the pot, as he saw his daughter talking to Hokage about kids, and Naruto chiming in as well. What a wonderful memory it would be for the years to come. Time skip. 2 years later, as Naruto woke up, his hand slowly reaching under his pillow to grab the kunai that was there. Then, without a second thought, he threw it straight at the person that entered his one-room apartment. His one-room apartment that he had recollected to, after the events that happened, to make him the most hated person in Konoha at the moment. After all, he had the Kyuubi inside of him, a silent prisoner, as he never heard him speak before, not even once. But the seal on his right arm, the kanji for iron, was the seal on his shoulder that placed him, that show off proof that he was the Genjutsu of the Kyuubi. The person in question deflected the kunai with one of his own, and in moments, Naruto was thrown out of his bed, onto the ground. "Naruto-kun, you know that you should be in the academy right now." The voice was of Itachi, as Naruto slowly picked himself up. "I hate those stares," said Naruto as he looked towards the window. "And I hate knowing that you're right in staring at me like that. Hatake-san is still out there, isn't he?" Itachi nodded. "He's gonna come in 5 minutes, if you end up late for your exam. Usually, to graduate from the Academy 1 would need at least 6 years. Entering at 6 and coming out as 12 was a normal queue. You know, one would think that he would not want 2 people to smash his own record of graduating the academy," said Naruto, as he started to get dressed. A brown jacket with a dark shirt underneath, dark green shorts, and brown sandals. "Hatake-san graduated at 5 years old after entering the academy at 4, said Itachi, "and he does take pride in having his private student graduate the academy after 2 years," Itachi said. As Naruto picked up his goggles, they no longer had the protection shade over it. After all, he had slammed it into the wall. He was angry after all, as everything had turned to hell. He was just 5 years old. It's not like he had a choice. And he was told it was for his own good by the Hokage to kindly move to one of the apartments for orphan kids. As Naruto was angry. Yes, he was angry as he beat his goggles into the wall that day. After all, he was deprived of his family. He didn't have a choice. He was just 5 years old back then. He was an adult. But now he had no father or mother to turn to. Neither a sister either, for what that matters. So, he had slammed the goggles against the wall repeatedly until his body finally gave in to exhaustion, as he had nothing left to give. Just the tears running down his face. After all, he was no longer a boy. He wasn't Naruto Namikaze either. For all intents and purposes, he was the hero that was jailing the Kyuubi within himself to protect the village. His eyes moved towards his ninja equipment that he checked over. He didn't really want to go to school, but he saw no other alternatives. And he knew when to follow his instincts. After all, the first day when he had made his way, there was a nagging feeling in the back of his mind telling him to run. The lady that usually smiled at him when he passed by with his mother, saying that he was a cute boy. The only thing that saved him from getting a knife lodged into his chest was him moving out of the way. It got stabbed right into his shoulder instead. The lady was a butcher, so she well knew where the heart was. So if he hadn't moved, he probably would have been killed. She was stopped instantly by some Uchiha guards. It didn't even leave a scar as he went to the hospital, but no one actually made their way to look at him. He decided that it was time to go, as he saw that the wound wasn't hurting anymore and it was gone. Anyway, I'm ready, said Naruto, as he made to leave with Itachi. Not having breakfast, Itachi said. As he closed the door behind him, Naruto reached into his pants pocket as he pulled out a chocolate bar. That's unhealthy, Naruto-kun. You know that you could come over to the Uchiha compound. Mother said. Itachi-kun, said Naruto. It will only bring more ill will around. Your clan has already basically been forced out of the village. I'm not gonna put it through more pain, if I can avoid it. He pulled the chocolate bar before biting into it, as he then spat it to the side. Should have known it was laced with poison, he thought. It seems too good to be true, for a chocolate bar to be just lying there in the park. As Naruto tossed it in the bin, the both of them made their way to the market district. Naruto, you shouldn't cause any more trouble, said Itachi. But Naruto was walking before he moved off to the center of the road. Itachi walked with him. Itachi. As Itachi looked up to see the real Naruto biting on the apple. Itachi jumped up as he landed beside Naruto. We should get going. The both of them made their way towards the academy. He's unpredictable, that is for sure, Itachi thought. For how much they called him a prodigy and a genius and a dashing man, Naruto was something else. Something better. He was unpredictable. Where Itachi passed his tests because he knew that he could. After simply studying 1 hour, Naruto didn't need that. But he passed it nevertheless, as Naruto could move around the place without even being spotted. He would be the best infiltration specialist once he came at proper age, and Itachi knew that. Itachi should have seen that because when Naruto was younger, he used to wear those bright orange clothes and yet he could enter places without being seen. Imagine how worse it has gotten, given the fact that he was no longer wearing bright orange. Itachi was a prodigy, a genius, from the very same clan that with the Senjus created Konoha in the first place. Naruto wasn't a prodigy or a genius, but he knew humility, and with only that and a headstrong determination, he was on par with Itachi. The difference didn't stop there though. Itachi wanted to become a strong ninja because he wanted to protect Konoha from harm. Naruto's reason was because he was told to be a civilian. The Hokage had the guts to say that he should take the road of being a civilian, and with those conditions everything can return back to the previous arrangement. He could go back to his home if he stopped trying to be a shinobi for now. An untrained Jinchuriki wouldn't be much use for a weapon, but it would make him safer for the village. He could always be trained later on. The later on part was what made Naruto felt the hunch once more. Later on, there was no later on. There was right now or nothing. He wanted to know why, and he wanted the truth. The truth that was only for the Hokage's ears. To become Hokage for the truth. Still, he didn't like to go to class. The stares from the children. He only had his friend Itachi to watch his back, as the Uchiha knew all too well of the caring nature of the boy. So much like his friend Shisui. Both of them cared for people other than himself. But unlike Itachi, Shisui kept to his other friends in the academy. Not that he blamed them. Being with Naruto was like being with a social stigma. Itachi had to fight since the first moment he stepped foot inside the class. Flashback, everything was cheery and nice as the roll call was going on. Itachi Uchiha. As Itachi raised his hand, but he was confused as Naruto's name wasn't called at all. As he was sure that he knew his ABCs, and N came before U. So he was confused why Naruto's name was skipped. Did they put him in a different class or something else? So that really confused Itachi until he heard Naruto Uzumaki. The door then opened up as Naruto walked in with an orange book, raising his hand to show that he was here. Once again puzzling Itachi. Even the sensei seemed a bit surprised, but they didn't say anything. And the strange thing was, Naruto did not come with books or paper to take notes. He didn't even come with pen. As he walked in and sat by himself. The moment the bell rang, he left. When it was recess, he retreated to a part of the playground and stayed there by himself until a bell rang. No one dare got close, as they nicknamed it the Demon Den. No one except for Inuzaka, who thought she might make him pay because her cousin was killed by the demon. The girl stood no chance at all. Itachi winks as you remember. Naruto showing the girl how nasty his tricks could get. Naruto was a prankster by nature, but when you corner him, as Itachi remember how the girl had gone crying that next moment. No Inuyasha had ever cried that hard. No Inuyasha was ever thought to be able to cry. They yell, they run and they scream. But cry? End of flashback. Itachi finally reached into the academy. He watched as his fan club was already there waiting for him. He narrowed his eyes as there was more people here than usual around the school. Many of them walked around like they were ninjas, to their own accord. That was a bit strange. Or either they were parents for the graduation class of the year. But he saw no clans showing up in either of the crowds, so he had no idea what was going on. Itachi inwardly sighed, as his Sharingan hasn't awakened yet, or else he would have peered through it to find out that something was going on right here, and he bet it had something to do with Naruto. As Naruto stopped in the hallway, as Itachi knew how it was going to happen, Itachi would go in. The roll call will happen, and Naruto would come in reading that orange book when his name was called. Itachi entered, as he had to make his way as the fangirls were once again nagging him. As, luckily, he sat beside Inuzaka Hana, a girl that had 3 small pups with her that bark at his fangirls that made him stay away. "You should be paying me for protection fee one day, you know," she said, as she glanced towards him. "It will be over by tomorrow," Itachi said. As the roll call happened, as Naruto's name was called, Itachi saw the door open. But to his confusion, Mizuki, another sensei, was the one that stepped in. "Itachi, Uchiha, and Naruto Uzumaki are to follow me towards examination room," he reported. Itachi got up in silence as the fangirls started to cheer him on. He followed Mizuki out. He was confused as Naruto wasn't outside the hallway. He was brought to the exam room. Naruto wasn't there either. Haruka was though. "I haven't seen Naruto Uzumaki today. Is he sick?" said Mizuki. As he said it, like he had a clear interest within Naruto, as Itachi picked up on that. There was only a few people that took interest in Naruto. One of them was his mother, even though she was always fussing over Sasuke, who was 2 years old by now. She always made sure that Naruto was safe as well. One day, he had been sick, and that was rather rare, since Jinchuriki or not, Naruto was seen unable to get sick, but they later found out it was because of poison. "He will come when you roll call his name," Itachi said. As Mizuki and Haruka nodded. "Well, to graduate the academy, you need the standard, clone jutsu, the hench, and the substitution. But because we have written test marks and taijutsu practices over the years and written and grade, if you had graduated by 12 years old, you would have had those test marks. But since you do not have those at the moment, you will be required to do the above jutsu, spar with me or Mizuki, and then finally hand in a small written test. The same will go for Uzumaki-kun, if you will grace us of his presence before you finish. Otherwise, he will be marked as a failure and most likely drop out of the shinobi program altogether." Itachi narrowed his eyes. Something was off. "Sensei, Naruto has been in the academy even before me," Itachi said. "There is no way he would miss this." "Well, he probably went to the bathroom or something," Haruka said. Haruka didn't really outright love Naruto or like him, but he was one of them who had testified that Naruto abilities were ready to take the exam early, probably to remove the fox demon from his class. At least, that was what everyone thought, but Naruto's skills was the real deal. "I see. Would you mind if I take the written test first, Haruka-sensei?" Mizuki-sensei, Itachi asked politely. Both senseis nodded as he was made to sit down to empty decks. The time limit was 2 hours. It was an easy thing, as he could simply get it done rather quickly. So for that he waited, hoping that Naruto would come in. After an hour, there was no Naruto. The time was running out as Itachi had to write on the paper, filling out the sections. Then it was a taijutsu spar. He did his best to hold out against Mizuki. Of course, the Chunin was stronger than him, as the man was a Chunin after all. Itachi was only 7 years old, but he did his best, bringing the fight out for at least a quarter of an hour. As the two of them made the sign for peace, Itachi was getting really nervous. He knew something was wrong. It must be something big, and yet the two teachers didn't seem to care for the problem. Just where did Naruto end up? Just where had he gone? Did that chocolate bar actually poison him? But he had seen fine, and he had spit it out quickly. Did something else happen to him? Was it the people outside, Itachi thought? Were they responsible in some way? As the ninjutsu spar was about to begin, someone knocked on the door. It's open, Aruka said. Itachi released a sigh, hoping that Naruto would explain what was going on when he entered that door. But it wasn't Naruto. A man entered, slicked black hair, golden eyes, wearing a Jonin vest. Itachi then saw Naruto behind him. As Naruto's left side of his clothes was shredded, his face was swollen, one of his eyes almost shut. Bruises on his face. What happened to the boy, Orochimaru-san, Aruka said, looking worried for a moment. But then that worry was replaced with curiosity. After all, it was the Jinjuriki of the Kyuubi they were talking about. Naruto was tougher than that. Orochimaru chuckled a bit, as his laughter seeming quite sinister. It seems this young shinobi had been taken by a group of rebels within Konoha, but as luck had happened to beat, I found him and his torturers. He insisted on becoming a genin by taking the test, but I believe that he doesn't have to take the test. With what I've seen so far, that would be unorthodox, Orochimaru-san, Mizuki said. Mizuki really hated Naruto, more than most people, for some strange reason. Anyway, I'm sure you wouldn't mind him being late. It wasn't his fault after all, Orochimaru said, with a final chuckle, as he left. As Naruto limped towards his seat, it seemed like his right leg had taken a bad twist somewhere. Seeing your condition, maybe you would prefer to take the test tomorrow. I'm sure the Hokage would understand if you... Naruto shook his head, cutting off Mizuki, as exceptions didn't work well for him. They always work against him. I'll take the test today. Tomorrow, you'd have already assigned the team assignments. If I'm not there, who's gonna take care of the Uchiha here? As Naruto winked towards Itachi, Itachi sighed. You know, next life, I'm having you drop out of the shinobi program, Itachi said. As Naruto was given his paper, can I do the jutsus first, please, said Naruto. Both of them had to nod. They had changed the orders for Itachi. So with Itachi still here, they would have to do the same thing with Naruto. The next moment, the substitution, the hench, and the clone jutsu was quickly done. He winced a bit when he substituted as he landed wrongly on his leg. Aruka was about to take up Naruto next in the taijutsu sparring, but Mizuki was the one that stood up, despite him already facing off against Itachi. I'll handle him too. It won't be anything else than some light sparring, said Mizuki, as he stood in front of Naruto with a small smirk on his face. As Itachi stood there, his leaf forehead protector already in his hand. As the battle began, Mizuki came in with a swinging fist that could be seen as lethal, not a spar, as Naruto was able to pull back slightly, but it still connected right in his face, breaking his nose. His leg was twisted or probably broken from what happened earlier, not to mention his body was still in pain. As Naruto knew that he probably asked him to do this, to do his worst to make him fail, so that he would drop out of the shinobi program, but he would not fail. He would become the greatest ninja ever, and he would be Hokage for the truth. As he remembered what happened, he should have known that the Hokage wouldn't want to speak to him outside school in the backyard. His mind was already telling him not to go out there. But the moment he stepped foot forward and looked out, there was a mob that came from inside. He was forced to flee to the outside, where he was stopped by another mob. As they surrounded him, he tried to avoid being captured for the longest time, but they had ninjas amongst their midst, and he was caught. Ninja wires were set at the alleyway that were a pull that made him fall right over. He was already holding his hands over his head. The first thing you should protect is your head. The rest of the body was secondary, as if he curled himself up in a ball. That was told to him by Kakashi once. He had done that. He had stood there screaming for help until his voice had gone sore. Obviously, the blood in his mouth and kicks hadn't helped him, as no one really go and help the demon brat though. The Uchihas would have, but they weren't there at the moment. The sharp cries of Die Demon could be heard. They end up breaking his foot so that he would stop and uncurl himself so that he could really bring down the hurt on him. But despite his broken leg, he still did not open himself up. A sound of metal sliding out of sheet could be heard. Kusanagi. As all of his assailants were cut down with relatively ease. As Naruto glanced up, "Why didn't you fight back, Naruto-kun?" Orochimaru said, as he knew that he could have fight back. He had given pointer to the boy more than once after all. "I should be doing that exam." I am sure he, said Naruto with an angry tone in his voice as he spoke about someone, would have had me drop out of the shinobi program if I had done something back. That was good thinking, Naruto-kun. Come along, I'll bring you back to school, Orochimaru said. And with those words, one of the three legendary Sannin had brought the boy back to school. End of flashback. A shinobi need to see underneath the underneath. That was the most valuable lesson of them all. Mizuki believed that Naruto was weak. And that is the same reason why Naruto was fending off his attacks. He didn't really put much effort into his attack, thinking that Naruto would fall, but he was really underestimating the boy. Mizuki got pissed as Naruto had a smug grin on his face, despite his body being battered and bruised, and he wasn't giving up. Mizuki aimed a kick right towards Naruto's broken leg, only for Naruto to leap right over the kick and slam that broken leg right between Mizuki's legs. As Itachi winced as he knew the pain behind Naruto's kick, and to have someone kick you right in the nuts like that, even Haruka had to suppress a wince as he felt like he could feel the phantom pain. Mizuki's eyes rolled back as his body couldn't handle the pain. It simply shut down as he fell unconscious. I thought it was broken, Haruka said as he pointed at the leg. I do have a broken leg, said Naruto, but it wasn't the right one, and I knew that it would result in playing dirty. Ninjas should always use the weakness of the opponent, Naruto-kun, said Itachi. Yeah, that's tough, said Naruto, as he was in pain, but he clearly did not let it show. Well, you did all of this in the state that you're in. You passed, Haruka said as he handed Naruto a leaf headband. Itachi, I think I'm not gonna be able to eat that Ichiroko ramen tonight. Warn, Hatake-san for me. As he started to fall, Itachi moved off as he caught Naruto before he could drop to the ground. Should I call a medic in, Haruka said, clearly worried. He should have been worried from the beginning, but if the boy was able to last till then he probably should have been fine, shouldn't he? He was a Jinjoki, a tough demon jailer, and he wasn't all that bad, was he? No, they would probably try and mercy kill, Itachi said. He'll be safer in the Uchiha compound, where I'll be carrying him. For their first day of journeying off the leaf, it wasn't really a good start, but Itachi didn't mind as he carried his friend to the Uchiha compound. As Naruto was unconscious, he was having that dream that always plagued his nightmare over and over, as he was expecting a baby brother or a baby sister, and then he was no longer in the house that was smashed by a giant red fox. As that made Naruto really scared. He cried as he wondered what was going on. His mother held on to him with one arm, and in her other arm seemed like a crying baby. His father stood in front of them protectively. I'm sorry, there's no other way. Naruto did not understand, as he did not understand what his father was talking about or what was going on. Then Naruto saw him took the bundle of clothes from his mother, the thing that she had in her arm, and he even took him as well. Why didn't his mother stop him? Maybe she was too tired. Maybe she wanted it to happen. The only thing he knew that he fainted afterwards. That was all that he remembered before everything went black. When he had woken up, all the clan members were around him, the clan heads, as they looked down at him with those stares. He started shaking in fear as they decided about his future, what he was gonna be from this moment on. Naruto snapped open his eyes as he woke up. As he looked around the room, confused what was going on, as there was a cast around his left leg, bandages over his body. Something was pressed over his swollen eye. As he was looking through one eye, was this how Kakashi-san saw the world? As he realized where he was, the Uchiha compound. He didn't hate the Uchiha compound. It was the exact opposite. When he started to get beaten up in public, it was always a Uchiha guard that came quickly and broke the mob apart. His friendship with Itachi Uchiha, the heir of the Uchiha clan, was at least to get some help, even from those who still loathed him. But Naruto also knew of the consequences for helping him. The Uchiha clan, they were pushed back so far out of the village, like they were some stigma like him as well. Something that burned hard in the soul of the leader of the Uchiha clan, Fugaku. He got to his feet slowly, holding back the pain. He was good at that. That was a sound teaching. Never let your enemies see that you're weakened, for them to exploit your weakness. As he got to his feet fully, as he kind of wondered if Kakashi was fine, because lately he has been getting distracted since he started to read those orange cover books. As he didn't know if the man was letting his guard down, but he was always giggling to himself most of the times. He also gave Naruto an orange book too, but Naruto never actually read it. He just took the cover and placed it to protect his school book. As he walked with the class every day, he knew that was Kakashi's trick to be undisturbed. As when he was reading that book, no one seemed to, well, tell him anything. They just avoid him, especially the adults. So he did the same thing. That was a cover on his school book. The orange cover that Kakashi always read. After all, everything was about survival. Being a ninja was not being nice or plain fear. It was about slitting throats from the back, kicking people in sensitive areas, snapping necks. Yes, that was the bad part of ninja world. After all, there was nothing known as a good ninja. Every ninja kill. Naruto's hand slowly moved towards the door as he tried to make it silently as possible, but it would be futile. As he opened the door swished aside to the other side to show Itachi standing there looking at him. Itachi gave Naruto a pointed look, as Naruto knew exactly what that look meant. Congratulations on passing the exams. Tomorrow is team assignment, and you need to get some rest. If you try anything, I'll force you to get some rest. And I can stay up all night if you like it. The message was really clear. Someone then walked in, as it was none other than Mikoto, Itachi's mother. I heard that someone wouldn't mind sleeping here for tonight, she said. Yes, said Itachi. Naruto-kun would like to rest here to recover from his wounds, said Itachi. Hey, Shh, said Mikoto, as she looked back to Itachi. Well, you know that he can stay as much as he likes here, but I must ask if he's hungry, seeing that he slept through lunch and dinner time. Yeah, he's hungry alright, Itachi said. I'm sure. He wouldn't mind eating something solid instead of ramen all the time, said Itachi. Itachi said Naruto, but they simply ignore him. As Mikoto smiled. Yes, he must be hungry, she said, as she left the two boys there. Itachi then turned his head. I suggest you don't try anything physical with me, given your state that you're in at the moment. To get back at me for that, Itachi said. Now, do get some sleep. I'll wake you up once the food is ready, said Itachi, as Naruto sighed as he sat back down. After all, he was in no condition to do anything right now, and at least he would be getting some good food. Usually, he would get kicked out of shops. Kakashi had taught him the transformation jutsu, and he was able to learn it. By transforming to a different person, he was able to buy goods and do odd jobs so that he could pay for them, but still, the money was small. So sometimes he had to do a bit of scavenging and foraging. There wasn't a single fruit tree that survived him at night time. Even the forest area on the outskirts of the village weren't left unscathed, and the farmlands where the rabbits were. Yes, wild rabbits out there, they were the best. As finding satisfaction in doing it himself, killing, cutting, cleaning, and cooking, making what he wanted, it gave him an odd satisfaction to learn his survival skills. But he still liked to be home even though he knew here was comforting and warm, because at his apartment there was one door, one window, but here the walls were like paper, the doors sliding. He was sure if a fire had lit in here, well, the whole place would go up in flames. Mikoto came back in the tray of different variation of foods, as Naruto bowed in thanks. As he started to eat, a sad look was on her face as she looked at him. She didn't know what made her sadder, the fact that he had a demon within him, or the fact how he was treated after becoming the demon container. Sure, the Kyuubi nearly destroyed Konoha, and it killed a lot of good people in the process, but how was this sweet child responsible for that? The sweet boy had obviously changed, but not because he became the nine-tailed demon. That was not it at all. Itachi had the pressure of becoming the next fan here. She couldn't have fawned over him too much, but still, she was really happy when the both of them had struck a friendship, as the boy had helped her son a lot. Uchiha-san, said Naruto after he finished. I really should be going, he whispered. Now, Naruto-kun, we went over this already. Just call me Mikoto-san, she said. And don't you even think of escaping through the window. You have a broken leg. You need rest, and the cast won't help if you keep on moving around, she said. I'll be fine by tomorrow, he told her. Team assignments are tomorrow, he said, as he was slowly drifting to sleep. What? Did he actually feel that sleepy? He didn't bother that much about it, and as he shrugged off the feeling, he still wondered why was he feeling all so sleepy. As he fell asleep, Mikoto stood up with a sigh. Really, if she hadn't known the knucklehead by heart, she wouldn't have given him a good dose of sleeping medicine, because knowing him, he would not rest, and he needed to rest. As she glanced towards him one more time, before she left, closed the door behind her, updating Itachi on his current state. As Itachi went to his own room to get some sleep, Mikoto made her way as she knocked on another door. As she entered into her husband's study, Mikoto, Fukaku said, surprised at the late hour visit from his wife. I would like to ask why no Uchiha guard realized that Naruto-kun was being severely beaten in the alleyway today, she asked quietly. Her dark eyes not accusing him of anything, but she was worried. I can't tell you, he said. This was a signal that he actually couldn't, meaning the Hokage had a hand in it. As she saw his eyes drifting around, she nodded. Her husband wouldn't actually do something like that for petty reasons. And having the guards not save him and help him in this current beating, there was something that he was not telling her. She knew it has to do with the Hokage, as she saw the look in his eyes. He was ordered to make his Uchiha man stand down while the beating took place. And knowing that he could not speak about it, the only person that could make this a secret to make him follow like this was the Hokage. The boy can stay for the night, Fukaku said. Itachi was smart enough to use a transformation to carry him in like a sack of potatoes. But he has to leave first thing in the morning. Yes dear, she said with a smile. Her husband was a tough shinobi. But he had one weak spot. He didn't like to see when she was sad. The next day, as Naruto opened his eyes, as he remembered the event of yesterday, a bloody way to become a genin, that was for sure. But he was a genin now. It was the first step for him becoming Hokage. Only then will the truth come to him. His left leg still feel a bit tingly. Not as much painful as yesterday, but he shouldn't be putting so much pressure on it. He saw breakfast on a tray next to him, as he ate it rather quickly. After all, he's not one to renounce food. One thing for sure, he would have today free. Tomorrow will be the genin test time, and by then, he would have to make his leg fix. As he thought about his options, he needed a medicine to get his leg fixed. He did have some money put aside. The problem was he needed to find someone to heal him without overpricing, as he needed to make sure his leg was ready by the time the genin's test happened. Another test that was secluded from the normal academy test, where the jonin instructor will test you. His transformation probably worked to get a medicine to heal him. Had he had broken something on his face, it would have been probably worse. He slipped, his door opened. Itachi was already standing right at his door waiting, his leaf protector on his head, with another one in his hand, handing over to the blonde. This is yours, Itachi said. Can I ask you a favor, said Naruto. Itachi was surprised, as this was the first time Naruto's asking for a favor. Whatever happens, I'll always have your back. Just don't leave me behind, okay? Itachi smiled a bit, as he nodded. Of course you wouldn't leave him behind. It's better we go through this together, Itachi said. He raised his hand, as Naruto grasped the hand, as both of them share a soft smile. Let's get going then, said Naruto. As Naruto moved, as he winced a bit when he put too much pressure on his broken leg. We did wake up early, Itachi said. We have time. The both of them made their way outside, as they wake up early to get to the team assignments. By the time the two of them arrived at the academy, they sat with the upperclassmen, the ones that actually graduate on time, seeing that Itachi and Naruto were special cases. Huh? A female kunoichi said. What are two kids like you doing here? She had purple hair that was tied up like a pineapple, as she looked towards the boy with whisker marks. In fact, there was only one other person that possessed them. Well, never mind, she said, as she moved aside without waiting for them to answer. You're a party killer, Naruto, Itachi said. What are you talking about? I'm always the life of the party, Naruto said. The teacher, Aruka-sensei, walked in alone, as Naruto wondered where was Mizuki. Mizuki is currently indisposed after yesterday's exams, as Naruto tried to suppress his chuckle, but he wasn't doing a good job, as Aruka heard him, along with the purple hair kunoichi as well, and Itachi. Oi, what's there to laugh about Mizuki-sensei being sick, you brat? He's not sick, said Naruto, between chuckles. He's probably holding a cold pack over it, he said, bursting out laughing, as Aruka eyes started to twitch. Itachi sighed. He will stay in the hospital for the next 2 days to repair all the damage that he's suffering from. A boy raised his hand. Did Mizuki-sensei broke a bone? He asked, as Naruto burst out laughing once again. I doubt he will ever break that bone. He might have a broken muscle though, said Naruto. Uzumaki, Aruka said. You are a genin of Konoha now. Please, control your outbursts. Fine, said Naruto, as he chuckled a bit before calming down. As Itachi shook his head, he knew that Naruto always did that when he was stressed, as he would probably end up with unknown teachers and teammates. So, he was probably stressed, thinking of the thought. And the only way for him to get over that stress was to laugh it off and make jokes. Alright, said Haruka, as he started to announce teams and their members. As he finished off with Team 7 members, the Jonin Sensei will be Kakashi Hatake. Now, Team 8 will be consist of Naruto Uzumaki, Anko Midarashi. Anko head slammed on the table, muttering something about Kami hating her, and Itachi Uchiha. Naruto literally hugged Itachi in triumph, as he was so happy he was on the same team with him. As he then broke free the next second, realizing everyone started to laugh. Haruka coughed in his hand. Silence, he said. Their sensei will be Orochimaru of the Sannin. Most of the students were rather pissed, as they were surprised as well. Itachi Uchiha being taught by a Sannin, that was fine for everyone. But the Jinchuriki of the Kyuubi, that monster, and Anko Midarashi, a war orphan that just got lucky, as she felt uncomfortable as they all started to look at her. Hey Itachi, you think you can show me that genjutsu that you master? The one to send a bunch of whining kids back to their mother. You know, the ultra secret one that only those of the Uchiha clan know how to make. But Naruto-kun, that whining kid will die after I use a jutsu, Itachi said. Completely serious. Even Haruka pale. Did such a jutsu exist? And not to mention, Itachi wasn't laughing. He was rather serious. So that made him thought that it was actually real. Well, anyway, wait for your Jonin Sensei to come along, and then off you will go, said Haruka. He left the room. The first one to actually show up was Orochimaru. Many of the kids were rather jealous as Orochimaru smiles. He looked at his new students. Orochimaru was focusing on Naruto. The boy absorbed things like a sponge, and it made him quite interesting. And not to mention, he was a Kyuubi Jinchuriki. Yes, the events that brought him to him were rather interesting, and Orochimaru loved every single moment of it. Meanwhile, somewhere else, don't you have a genuine group teach as well, Kakashi? Asked the Hokage. Hokage-sama, with all due respect, why wasn't he placed on my team, Kakashi asked. Kakashi has been a Jonin for a while now, and why not assign him the one boy that he could actually teach something? He who? Said the Hokage, raised an eyebrow. Naruto, Kakashi said. The Hokage tone turned snappish. Orochimaru the Lieutenant 3 wished to teach him, and for that reason he was chosen. As his gaze lowered towards the village, the boy refused any attempts of conciliation, and instead he chose his path. So I will make sure he carries out to the end. I made sure that Orochimaru himself showed no leniency towards him or the rest of the team if he actually passed the genuine test. While facing off against a Sannin, then maybe he will be worth enough of my time to sort out some D-level rank missions for him. But as Kakashi tried to come up with something for such a messed up judgment call, but the Hokage cut him off. Kakashi, he is extremely important to the village. Do we understand each other? Kakashi nodded. Yes, Hokage-sama, he said. As he turned to leave, the door of the office opened up, and a woman carrying a 2-year-old in her arm entered with a smile. Kakashi-kun, said Kushina. How are you doing? She asked. As Kakashi gave her a smile. Everything is fine, Kushina-san, he said. I'm a bit in a hurry though, I can't stay any longer. See you too, Katsumi-chan. And with those words, Kakashi left. As Kushina, with her 2-year-old baby, Katsumi-chan, moved towards her husband, Minato Namikaze. The man who had disowned his very own son claimed that he was too disrespectful to be a Namikaze. The man who had tossed Naruto into an apartment, saying that he was too dangerous. He would make him come back if, and only if, he retires as a shinobi. If he had refused, if he become a civilian. The man who considered his only son as a piece of furniture, a tool, instead of a breathing boy. Kakashi didn't know which one of them he hated the most. A sensei for what he did, claiming that the boy should be seen as a hero, but nevertheless threw him in the streets. And his wife then didn't lift a finger for her own firstborn. How could she do that? He truly actually did not know. But like a couple other friends that were close to the Fort Hokage who want the truth, to know what the hell happened, none of them knew, as the truth was kept into Minato's mind, deep and tight. And would they ever find out? Would Naruto ever know the truth? But guys, it'll be in tips right here. If you want the next part to do, like, subscribe, comment down below, and turn on that bell notification to stay posted. But more for now, see you guys soon. Peace.